My people, how are you doing? Today we're coming to you live from different parts of the United States. I'm coming to you live from the Carne Mesa VA facility parking lot. Chris is coming to you from Washington, and Megan's Langstone. She's coming to you from LA. We are here. I am a 22-year-old veteran. I just retired last month. Chris, he's been retired for a year. And Megan, not only is she an advocate and a supporter to the community, but she's also surrounded by nothing but military family members all across. Her actual brother is serving currently outside of the country. Without further ado, this is the ScuttleButt team, and we bring you live information about things that you can take action to improve and resources. And if you have any questions, please ask us. That's what this is about, so that we can either share what we know or find out from the resources that we can bring you the answers to you. Chris, you have a
Oh,
beautiful
you're
voice.
muted,
I'd love to
Chris.
hear when you're not muted.
It was a test. You guys all passed. It was a test. Hey, first off, I just want to say thank you to Carol in the background, who is our admin, and
Whoop,
to
whoop.
Megan, who those two have been holding us together. Being a veteran and getting involved in college and taking care of things, we wouldn't be where we're at without the people that surround us. So thank you so much. And this is November. Can you believe it? We are in November already. Like, where has the
Election
time?
just happened last night.
Yeah, it's
The election happened last
November.
night. Yeah.
November.
Yeah, the election was last night. The whole entire world was up there watching what's going to happen. And right now is a great time for just Americans just to be Americans and start the healing and start getting back together and talking about what's really important. That's our communities. We need to get back into our communities, and we need to be involved with that. I think this week's is a little closer, or this month's subject is going to be a little bit closer to home with me, with my own personal experience with horses. We have two incredible veterans. We're going to bring them onto the stage right now, Ted and Sonia. They are amazing, and they're transforming veterans' lives through equine therapy. And I'm going to read a little bio really quick, just so that way we can honor these two great Americans and veterans. First up, we have Sonia, who served in the U.S. Navy as a hospital corpsman and later pursued a career as a registered nurse. While working with the Department of Veteran Affairs, she saw how limited mental health resources are for veterans still fighting their battles at home. This experience led to her to explore the powerful connections between humans and horses, recognizing how herd dynamics can, with teamwork and mental wellness, can help. After years of training, Sonia launched Hooves and Heroes in 2021, a trauma informed equine program that now supports both veterans and first responders, helping them build resilience through these interactions. Sonia, welcome to the show. And Ted, we have Ted, a U.S. Air Force veteran, formerly aircrew member with 7 years of service. After leaving the military in 1993, Ted founded Alliance Resource Group, a veteran-owned IT consulting firm. He's been a powerful advocate for veteran causes, holding multiple leadership roles, founding Veteran Strong USA in 2018 to support veterans through legislative action. In 2023, he took the organization's mission even further, incorporating equestrian assisted therapy to focus on mental health support, certified in therapy. Igala, did I pronounce that right, Ted?
Yeah.
Supporting a Gulai therapy model, Ted's program brings innovative compassion care to the veterans through healing bond between horses and humans. This is going to be really great, and I'm super excited to have you guys all on here. We lost Megan for a second; she'll be back. So I open the floor to you guys. What is it? What is it that brought you guys here? How did you meet the Mil2Vet crew?
Go ahead, Sonia.
Well, Chris and I are practically neighbors, it sounds like, compared to everybody else on here. So we're pretty close by, and we've bumped into each other a couple times at different veteran resource outreach events. We have a pretty good network here that we call the Veteran Coalition, and we have monthly meetings as well where we all get together as resources and start to connect. So Chris and I started talking at one of these meetings, and of course, I was talking about my work with horses, and I think the first thing he said to me is like, "I hate horses." I hate them. So he's got an equine facility of his own that, I think probably is more of his wife's idea than his, and that's typically how it goes around my case too. So I can feel for that. Absolutely. My husband definitely feels that. So I get it. But yeah, that's how we connected and started chatting about the programs that we offer here. So it's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
I came to know about ScuttleButt through Megan. Megan and I have worked on a number of different veteran projects. She's been very supportive of my mission, not just on the legislative activism side, but more importantly with the equine assisted therapy and also equine rider therapy. So that's how I got connected to you all.
Well, we're really happy to have you here to have a conversation and to share about these resources. So what is equine therapy for everybody that doesn't know what that means?
Sure. Do you want me to take that or?
Go ahead.
So there's equine therapy is a broad term. There's really two categories that we're talking about here today, I believe. So equine assisted therapy, or EAP, does require actual licensed therapists to lead that activity. And that is partnering with horses and your therapist and the client typically, in different models such as the EGALA model that was mentioned with Ted's group. They also have an equine specialist. So in that structure, there's someone who really understands the horse and horse language. And then there's the therapist who really understands the human and the human language. And then they're working with the horse as a partner and then their client. In equine assisted learning, which is the other umbrella that is next door to equine assisted therapy, that does not require a therapist to lead equine assisted learning. And there's a pretty strong, pretty good dividing lines with regard to scope of practice when it comes to EAL work, making sure that people aren't stepping into the therapy zone. Our program is an EAL program. I'm a registered nurse and I have trauma-informed therapy training, but I am not a therapist. So I'm pretty clear about that with regard to my training to make sure that scope of practice is adhered to. We kind of laugh. I'm like, I'm not a therapist, but I provide a therapeutic environment, is how I look at it.
And with that, I know Eric brought up a really good point about horses, right? And dealing with the horses, it doesn't necessarily mean that you get the opportunity to ride the horses. A lot of the times, from what I've experienced, when it comes to equine therapy, it is preferably for you not to do that, for you to just interact with the horse and the horse back and forth and take care of the horse and then kind of create this symbiotic relationship of partnership. And one, we as humans, we learn how much of power they really have, but yet they're so gentle, or they can be really gentle animals. But at the same time, if you mistreat them, they will also fight back. Am I correct?
Yeah, let me jump in here for a second. I just kind of wanted to add to what Sonia was saying. Great description, by the way. Equine assisted therapy is exactly what she says. We take the therapy session out of the boring office environment. We put it in a smaller arena or bullpen. And as she alluded to, there is a licensed therapist, whether it's an MFT or social services therapist in the arena, small arena, with myself, the equine specialist. And we bring in 1, 2, 3 horses and, one client, or it could be a group, could be a family, whatever. And then we just ask the clients to, go do whatever they want with the horses. If they want to pet them, go pet them. If they want to observe them, go observe them. Do whatever they want. And horses are a fight or flight animal. And so you can really pick up on the signs that a horse is giving you, or the therapist and myself as the equine specialist. If the client is moving towards a horse and the horse moves away from the client, that's a sign right there. If the horse is swishing its tail back and forth, has its ears pinned back, they're telling us something there. Okay. And so we'll observe the clients interacting with the horses, and when they're done, we'll do our check-in. And we ask these open-ended questions like, hey, what was going on out there? I saw when you approached the horse that the horse moved away from you. What was that all about? And then, a lot of times the client will, say just basic stuff. I don't know. I've never been around horses or whatever. And then we start peeling that layer back. And then inevitably they start talking about, this horse moves away from me just like every time when I approach my kids, my wife, or my husband, they are not receptive towards me. And so that's where the therapy session really begins. Okay. And you're not going to fix anything in one day. Okay. You need multiple sessions. And the belief with this model is that we, as the clients, we are the best at healing ourselves. Okay. We're going to figure out how to heal ourselves with the therapist and with the horses. So the energy between the animal and the human is really what we're observing. And I wanted to add one other thing to the whole equine therapy. There's also equine rider therapy, which is a whole different program in itself. And we can get into that more a little bit later, but right now we're just talking about equine assisted therapy. So Yogi, I apologize that I probably didn't answer your question directly. So if you want to ask that again, sorry.
No, not at all. I mean, you gave a very clear overview of what each branch is. Because, I mean, even to someone that doesn't know what equine therapy means, right?
Mhm.
Then you just say horses, right? What is the first image that comes? Is like, let's get on a horse and ride. Well, that's
Right.
not that simple, right? And it's actually more dangerous, especially if you don't know what you're doing and if you have a disability, like our friend Eric mentioned. I mean, he's not even able to get on a horse. So that would be even more dangerous for both the horse and the human. But I'm really glad that you broke it down into the separate steps and the separate therapies that are available. And then you talked about specifically about how when you approach the animal, the horse, right? And how the horse is reacting, and it gives feedback both to the person that is there to be for therapy, and it allows us to see the micro expressions that we sometimes get numbed out, that
Mhm.
not is not just for the horse, right? It's for human beings and interactions. When someone doesn't want to really talk to you and they're just talking to you to be kind and patient, they do push away a little bit. They kind
Mhm.
of close their arms, right? And then their face becomes serious. Versus the, hey, how are you doing? My name is Yogi. Welcome to the show, or welcome to whatever. Obviously, that's a welcoming thing, but some people can also, depending on the person, can also over stimulate them and they want to push them back. So I'm really glad that you were able to cover those aspects of that.
Right. And that's the big benefit of working in partnership with horses, is horses will tell you how you're showing up in the moment. They also don't carry the shame, blame. They don't know your past. They're present in the moment. They're not going to judge you. They're just going to simply respond to the moment. And so that gives us a lot of immediate information to work with. And it's all, for the most part, what Ted and I are kind of talking about is from the ground for the most part. Mounted work does come and it can come later, but a lot of programs really are based on that relationship building and less about the horsemanship skills. Because you can gain a lot just simply being in that space. And And I see a lot of, in my work, I don't have a therapist on staff. And so I'm coming at it more from a coaching perspective. So I'm asking a lot of open-ended questions. And then if things do come up for them, my advice is always to seek therapy, right? So there's stuff that will come up, and I'm a strong advocate to say that this is something that they should delve into deeper for sure and explore. And I strongly advise they do it with the guidance of someone who's trained to help guide them through that process of diving deeper into it. Horses have a way of kind of breaking through and doing it quickly. And like Ted said, it's not a one and done. It's just scratching the surface, but you can get there faster. And that's typically why equine therapy services, either EAP, EAL, or other forms of it, are so popular, is because you're moving space. Like Ted said, you're moving out of that traditional couch office, therapeutic environment, and moving into a different space, even if it's the same therapist or a different one. But now you've added this element of horse, and all of a sudden you can have a different interaction, and you're getting feedback from an animal that has no bias against you. They have no judgment against you. They're not going to come in with ego or any of that. They just simply are responding to the moment. And that feedback can be very useful, I guess is one way of putting it, to really one of the terms that's used a lot is mirroring, and some people like that term, some don't, but that feedback gives you an opportunity a lot of times to see where that might be happening elsewhere in your life. So like the example you gave, there might be a time when a horse responds to you exactly how other people do, or they may be reflecting how you're feeling inside. I had a client once that came, and I have a mare that I brought into the round pen to work with, and I was demonstrating connection and having that first sort of hello and bond with a horse. I brought the horse in to show that, and that mare was just losing it. And she's not normally herd bound. She doesn't normally have these kinds of moments, but she was having big feelings in that moment. And so I was just staying with her and trying to reassure her that she was safe with us and she was going to be okay. And she eventually calmed down. But man, she was tearing around that round pen for a while. And of course, inside my brain, I'm like, oh, this is not working, One of the vets, she goes, I said, so a lot of times when stuff like that happens, you just have to ask, what did that reflect for you, or what did you think about that experience, or what came up for you in observing how this horse responded? One of the veterans just immediately said, she goes, that's me. I know exactly how she feels. And it was able to just crack open for her all this stuff, and she could just get it out. She goes, I watched her feeling so caged and trapped and panicked, and that's exactly how I feel all the time. And that moment of being able to see it play out in front of her, that somatic experience, was big for her and helped her kind of step over a threshold to begin to start that healing work. So that's just one example of how being, partnering with these horses in this way can really help people kind of get beyond just if there's some sort of block, or they're just not progressing, or they're stuck for any reason. It can help kind of get some more momentum.
That is a great description, Sonia. And just add one thing to it, or a couple actually. But if you enter the round pen and you are carrying a lot of anxiety, if you're carrying anger, depression, all these different emotions, the horse is going to pick up on that. Okay, it's this transfer of energy back and forth from the human to the animal. But what Sonia just described, it sounds to me like perhaps the lady, she told you, right? She carries a lot of anxiety. She gets into that round pen. The horse is probably looking at you for her safety. Yeah. And you have this client you're working with, and she's like, I'm not really too sure about this, because horses are skeptical animals as it is. So if they're around that energy, they're going to respond off of that energy. But that was a great description.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, fam, I am going to have to unfortunately drop. My next VA appointment that was supposed to be here in Carne Mesa is now live as of 10 minutes ago. Thank you so much for allowing me to interact with you and to learn from you. Would love to keep in touch and be able to have the conversation and continue teaching what's available.
Bye, Yogi.
Love you guys.
It's good to meet you.
Yeah, brother. Good to have you on here, man. And Sonia, this is a question for you. Tell me, how did you get involved
Mm.
with horses and then make that connection? What was it that got you there?
Mm. I've had horses almost my entire life. I was one of those horse crazy kids. And through just, the ups and downs of childhood, being a teenager, life in general, horses got me through a lot of it. They also taught me a lot about leadership and how I show up, and what's being asked of me in the presence of horses, and that helped kind of build. It was character building, I guess, sort of helped form me as a human. After being in the military and then getting my nursing degree, I worked at the VA for a while. I worked in their outpatient clinics, the C-Box, and really saw just firsthand a lot of what our veterans were going through. And we had a lot back then. That was a lot of Vietnam, and OEF, OIF was fresh. They were just coming out from that. So really started to realize that, gosh, there's not a lot of services outside of traditional therapy. And I was hearing a lot of, negative stigma about traditional therapy. And so they weren't attending. They weren't going to therapy, which is, probably what they really needed. But there was a lot of bias and stigma around it, and understandable. There's, no judgment in that. It's just, that was just what I was saying. And so I started to think about how horses have been so therapeutic for me and helpful for me. And I've always had them in my life, and what they could teach me about emotional regulation and resiliency and leadership, and realized that this could be very beneficial to our veterans as well. And that's what sort of started me down the path of research. And I spent many years in research, reading, studying different models, going through different training programs, attending different retreats myself to just determine what I felt was the best fit in my my style, I guess, for bringing the two together. And spent a lot of time kind of studying the Igala model as one of them, which is why I'm familiar with it, just to see if that was the path I wanted to go down. And chose to build a program that did not involve therapy specifically, to provide an opportunity for almost like a gate, that first step in, for those that may have had negative experiences with therapy or have a bias against therapy, if they could at least get to something, and then we could ease them into deeper conversations with those that are trained to have them, was sort of my approach there. But yeah, I had horses my whole life, and then just saw how much benefit they are. And that really just was enough of a spark of curiosity to really get me to study it and spend a lot of time in research and educating myself on it.
That's awesome. And it started with a little seed. It seems like you had a lot of experience with horses before.
Mhm.
And that's one thing that I've also learned with my kids. Horses have done a lot of awesome things
Mhm.
for them, because now they know how to act around animals, and they know whenever they go up to an animal, if they were upset, they can't just take that up to their
Yep.
they have to kind of rid themselves of it, right?
Right.
Ted, I'm really interested to hear how you ended up into um, being where you're at today, helping veterans, and the path that you took. It looks like you were kind of helping out with legislation and all that stuff. Like, take us down that road. How did you end up to where you're at today, brother?
Sure. So, grew up around horses myself as well, and then I had a pretty long gap. After had some family divorce and stuff like that, so I had to get rid of the animals. But right around 2009 is when I started getting active in the veteran community, veteran activism, and really, really started to learn that veterans don't get any benefits unless they're codified into law. Okay, at the state level, federal level, county level, it has to be policy signed off on by the board of supervisors. And so, as I'm going through this journey of creating legislative concepts, and by the way, I think it's about 8 or 9 of my legislative concepts out of about 15 became law in the state of California for veterans. And
Nice.
thank you. And
I love
uh,
that.
I really started paying deeper attention to the mental health problems in our community, okay, in the veteran community. And I started hearing about these 22 veterans a day that are taking their lives, all right? Well, lo and behold, I learned several years later, probably 5 years later, 6 years later, that it's actually 43 veterans take their lives a day, 42 to 43 veterans. Where that number comes from is 5 states in our union. And by the way, I tell people this all the time. 5 states in our union collected data of all veteran suicides. So only 5 states in the union collect overdoses as suicide. Only 5 states in the union collect veteran suicides of veterans that are outside the VA system. So again, that's only 5 states in the union, and I can provide those write-ups for y'all, so you can see firsthand what I'm speaking of, because it truly is the real epidemic in our community, in this country. Okay, where else are 43 people dying each day? I mean, I'm sure there's some crazy numbers out there, but these are the men and women that took that oath. Okay, and our government is not going to be there to for them. It's incumbent upon us as veterans and the community to take care of these men and women. So as I'm going through my journey of legislative concepts, putting them forth, I decided, I'm going to have more of an impact working on the mental health side. And about 4 years ago, I think I speak for a lot of veterans, okay? We get to this stage in our life, maybe multiple times, maybe it only happens a couple times, I don't know, where we're just at the edge, okay? The pressure is there for us, all right? We're not sure what to do, all right? What is my purpose? Do I even need to be here anymore? What's life going to be like without me here? I'm going to get rid of all these mental health problems I have, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But I started just kind of connecting with the horses again, and I realized that, hey, these animals are really saviors, And so then I started looking into, I started taking what it did for me and applying it to the veteran community. So about a year and a half ago is when I started working with veterans on the equine therapy. And so that's how I got into this. And I also want to make a clear distinction between what Sonia and I have been describing as equine assisted therapy. She does equine learning therapy, but there's also equine rider therapy, which is totally different than the equine assisted and equine learning therapy. So I provide both at Veteran Strong, and most of the people that I work with are combat veterans, but we do have some veterans that are just having a tough time. I work with their kids. The main things that really drive people to the edge, or having problems with depression or whatever, is PTSD, TBI, and chronic pain is a big one too. And one that never gets talked about, military sexual trauma. All right. There's a lot of women in the military that are experiencing this. A lot. I think the number is somewhere around 27% of female military members experience military sexual trauma. I think with the guys, it's around 15%. And I know people will probably, if they review this podcast, will say, well, how can a guy receive military sexual trauma? Okay. There's a lot of ways a guy can receive military sexual trauma. Okay. When you're a young recruit, you've got your higher ups in your command, coming after you and making advancements on you or whatever. If you report that to your upper level command, you're going to be in a lot of trouble by your lower level command, and they're not going to be the senior leadership is not going to be looking out for you, because that's going to be a black mark on your squadron or your unit or whatever. So these are the things that we're dealing with today. And but that's what kind of drove me to the equine assisted therapy and also the equine rider therapy.
Thanks so much for sharing, Sonia and Ted. Sorry, I had got my internet or something from the high winds that we're having here right now. Ted, I don't know if you're experiencing the same thing in Aliso as I am in Mission Viejo. I think it's messing with my Wi-Fi. You know, I think what Ted is doing, you know, both Sonia and Ted, what you're doing is amazing. You know, I've been able to go down to Ted's, you know, ranch and see the stables and see firsthand like what's happening. And, you know, on Saturday, this past Saturday, he did a ride to end veteran suicide, and he had an amazing turnout. Ted, do you want to kind of talk about that? Do you also want to talk about maybe how you're going to be working with Strong Families, Strong Children, if that's okay to talk about? I know you had a meeting, so it wasn't completely finalized yet, but
no, I'd love to. Thank you. So about 6 weeks ago, let me see here, about 3 months ago, I had this idea of putting something together for Veterans Day. I've been involved with these large Veteran Day events, so typically a week before Veterans Day. And we put on some large events where a Veterans Day breakfast. So we'll get about 300-400 people in a ballroom, and we'll have guest speakers and celebrities will show up and yada, yada, yada. That's all fine and dandy, but it's not about the celebrities, okay? It's about the veterans. It's about these men and women that have put their lives on the line, okay? And they've experienced what it's like to be close to death. And so people were telling me about, oh, you can't be doing this Veterans Day event. It's going to cost too much and yada, yada, yada. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, keep telling me that. I love it when people tell me not to do something. All right. Because my thing is always lead with good intentions. All right. I'm not leading with, you know, hey, this is a great way to make money. Honestly, I didn't make any money. I was in the red in the event I put together. So about 7 weeks ago, I decided, you know what, I'm going to put together a ride to end veteran suicide. And so I started talking with Megan on this, and a couple guys that are my advisors, combat veterans, Christian Worthmuller, who's an Army combat veteran, and Paul Worley, who's a Marine Corps combat veteran, both retired out of the military, great men, great leaders. And I got together with them and I said, hey, this is what I want to do. What do you think? Let's go check out the park where I want to stage and ride out from. And so once I got their blessing, I put together this event called Ride to End Veteran Suicide. I went to Megan, and with her marketing expertise, we put together a flyer, we put together a registration page, all this stuff. It worked out really, really awesome. I started distributing the flyers to the local barns in San Juan Capistrano. San Juan Capistrano is an old cowboy town in South Orange County. Really, really cool area. If you ever get down here, I definitely encourage y'all to take a tour of San Juan Capistrano. And so I didn't realize, I mean, I was going to be happy with like 15 riders, okay? I ended up having over 50 riders on the ride, okay? We had about, I don't know, 10, 12 people show up with their trailers and their horses, and then we had the rest ride in from the different barns. We staged. We opened with the Pledge of Allegiance, honoring our colors. Paul led us in prayer, pre-trail ride prayer, and then Christian gave us, a nice speech on, the importance of this ride, and how he's over the years he's lost many of his soldiers to suicide. Okay, so it's very deep for a lot of these men and women that have been in combat. We come back from the ride, 2-hour ride in the San Juan Capistrano Hills, great turnout. And I had probably about 65 people for the after party. We had a raffle, we had music playing, I fed everyone. We raised about 1,500. We raised about $800 with the raffle, and then over the course of like 2 weeks, I had about $1,000 come in donations, and money's still coming in from donors. And because of all this, I've had one of the ladies that is with a organization by the name of Healthy Families, Healthy Children, which is specific to in Orange County. We have 2 courts. We have the Veterans Criminal Law Court, and we also have the Veterans Family Law Court. The Family Law Court is new. The Criminal Law Court for veterans is still there, or has been around for a while. And so we have a veterans jail in Orange County also called Humvee units, both for men and women, and they're staffed by veterans as well. Because no one knows how to deal with veterans better than veterans, right? Okay, so Healthy Families, Healthy Children. My friend Mitzi Huff works directly with these families, and our goal working with them is to hopefully strengthen the family. All right, and even if the family doesn't stay together, all right, we still want those relationships with the mother and the father and the kid or kids to be healthy. And so that's how we're going to be working with Healthy Families and Healthy Children. On the criminal law side, the Humvee unit, we want these men and women post-incarceration, okay? Because again, Chris, Sonia, as well as I do. Chris, if you're acting like a dummy, I'm going to tell you're acting like a dummy, all right? You don't need to act like that, okay? Same goes with you for me. It's like, hey, brother, you don't need to be saying that. You don't need to be acting like that. We're here to help you, okay? We're here to help you get back on your feet, okay? Work through whatever issues it is, and we're going to do it with horses, all right? And you know what? Bring in your family members, okay? So these are the post-incarcerated veterans. But these are the programs that I'm working on with the county. I have had, let's see here. I've had the Orange County Veteran Services Officer down there. I've had the Director of Community Services for Orange County down at the ranch. I've had the Mental Health Navigator for Orange County down at the ranch, giving them tours. I've had, oh my gosh, what was the other group? I had Michelle, I won't mention her name, but at any rate, I've had the CFO for Orange County and the interim CEO, same person. I've had the director of budgeting down at the ranch as well. There's another group that came down, I can't remember, but nonetheless, and I had Healthy Families, Healthy Children down there with one of her therapists, just to give them the tour and that. And they all love very much what we're doing. The importance of working with the county is, first off, I was awarded a grant from the county, a pretty decent grant, all right? And I'm also working with them on identifying land for us to operate from. So Sonia, I've chat with you about this offline. I definitely encourage you to start making those contacts and really working them and having them out to where you're, hosting your therapy sessions and that. Let them know exactly what you're doing. But it's, I feel like, as they say, it's like you have to chip away. All right. You can't expect everything to be handed to you. My whole goal with Veterans Strong USA on the equine therapy side, equine assisted therapy, was, hey, let me show them what I'm doing first. Okay. So I operated for little over a year and a half on my own dime. Didn't charge any veterans, didn't charge any of their family members and military. And after I started servicing these our community, I decided, hey, let's start going out and bringing people in for tours, and let's start asking for money, because now we have verifiable clients. Okay, we can show them that, hey, we are worthy of your money. Okay, we are saving lives. And people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, well, first off, we save lives. Okay, that's what we do, plain and simple. We save lives. That's what you're doing, Sonia. That's what I'm doing. Okay, we're saving lives. And then I go into the description of the services that we offer. But yeah, that's it, Chris. I hope that's a good answer to your question.
No, that was great. And for the record, I just want to set it out there because I know that my wife is probably watching. I don't hate horses. Okay.
Did I just get you in trouble? No, he doesn't hate horses. He was giving me shit.
So, I know from my own personal experience that horses can definitely read the room. You never want to play poker with a horse. That's for sure. They could tell when you're bluffing, and
Yep.
you really do kind of need to unload some of your stuff before you go riding a horse. But it's definitely, I see exactly what you're talking about when it comes to seeing like how horses react to somebody that's anxious, somebody that's fearful. And like you said earlier, it's like, hey, why did that horse look at you and kind of pin its ears back and want to walk away from you while it was in the cross ties? Do you act that way around other people? And you said somebody said, well, my children and my family acts like that towards me as well. And that's a great identifier for somebody to start realizing, hey, well, maybe it's not the animal, it's not the kids. Maybe you have some kind of part in it. And one thing I would like to hear both of you guys talk about is, how do you see equine therapy or therapies like equine therapy being different from other forms of mental health services and help? How do you see it being different? And if not a little bit, I would have to say a little bit better,
So one of the things that sets it apart that I really rely on in my practice is the combination of intrinsic and extrinsic. So meaning I'm having an internal process and an external validation of that process at the same time. We can talk about something, all day long till we're blue in the face. But being able to see it played out in front of you at the same time you're experiencing it internally is very different. So that's the somatic experiential component of being with horses, that you have this opportunity. So some of the things that we do, for example, my approach relies heavily on the nervous system. So I do a lot of polyvagal theory work. And so I spend a lot of time talking about fight, flight, freeze, and appease, and how we kind of ping pong between those two that are band of resiliency, which is where we respond instead of react, gets pretty narrow as you get more and more traumatic experiences in your life. And trauma is basically just anything that is not rhythmic, patterned, and predictable. And that can be different for everybody. So the more trauma, the more you're going to ping pong between those two and move from dysregulated state to dysregulated state. And so a lot of this work with horses is we're really trying to expand that band of resiliency and help people move into a more regulated state and be able to stay there regardless of external stimuli. And that's, we're really just trying to build tools for them to be able to go to Costco and get to the sporting event and have a conversation with their wife and go to family dinner and do these things that they would like to participate in day to day. We've had veterans go back to work after working with horses because they can finally tolerate that environment again. It's the benefits, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you make faster leaps. It's not that it's better than therapy. It's more, you can take that therapy tools that you've been given and put them to practice. Now you have an external way of facilitating that therapeutic talk therapy and actually using it in an environment that's safe. Sometimes you don't want to practice these things on your spouse. And I know a lot of veterans don't offload to their family members because they're just spreading trauma around. They're not necessarily getting it off their chest. They're just widening the blast zone. So they don't want to talk about these things outside of the therapy room. Working with horses or other animals, you can have that conversation with a horse, and the horse isn't going to give a shit. You can get that off your chest. And it makes you congruent when you start talking about it. So the congruence is, again, insides and outsides matching. My actions match my intentions. And if you can start moving into a space where you're showing up more congruent, and we can work through a lot of the disassociation that veterans carry, where we sort of check out from our bodies, particularly those that are in chronic pain. We can find gentle ways to work through some of that without re-traumatizing. Then you can start to line those things up a little bit, and you can move through your life in a more regulated state if you can bring some of these things back online. And a lot of that helps with horses. We do some simple things as simple as learning to twirl a rope. And just teaching them how to twirl a rope, the amount of energy you put down that line is the amount of energy you're storing in your body. If I say, just start twirling the rope, and then I ask you, now this is the internal, external, I ask you to look at that rope and tell me on a 0 to 10 scale, how much energy is in that rope. And they're like, oh, it looks like an 8. How do you feel inside, and how much energy you feel you're putting into that rope? Well, it feels like a 3, right? So we start working with that. Or they'll say, oh, I feel like I'm at a 5, but the rope is just singing through the air. It's like, well, then bring your rope down and show me a 2, then show me an 8, then show me a 3, show me a 9. And then they start finding they can regulate. Now their energy is going up and down as they put more effort into twirling that rope. They can feel the difference between, now we're starting to even just feel into our bodies. What does it feel like to have more energy or less energy? And then of course that skill translates into working with horses too. But it's a simple tool for them to have an external stimulus. And we do a lot of kind of grounding techniques, mindfulness-based techniques to bring them back into the present moment and have situational awareness with that anxiety. So I really try to instill that right away, how we can observe our surroundings and use all of our senses to take in our environment in the same way a horse does, so that we can start to show up in that space in the way horses show up in a space. And begin to speak their language, which helps with that connection component with the horse when we first enter into a herd. And it also gives them tools, again, for showing up in a space, using their senses to bring awareness, a 360-degree awareness of their environment without causing anxiety. Because so often we get in and we get laser focused and the anxiety skyrockets. So a lot of different tools I use. A lot of them are from the HeartMath Institute, where we do a lot of work around trauma-informed tools and stuff that really try to help people expand that resiliency band. And so to answer your question, we can talk about those things in therapy, we can talk about those things here, but until you step out into a field with a bunch of loose horses, you don't really know how you're going to respond to them or they're going to respond to you until you're there. And that's where the learning begins, when you can put those tools to practice.
I love that. You had I know. Have you ever been in a field with a whole bunch of horses? Have you ever been like in a place where there's thousands and thousands of horses and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. And Northern California has a lot of places like that where you go hang out with these horses. And I know once you get one-on-one and you talk about the energy in the line and how we are beings of energy. And when we get on top of a creature, which your therapy is not about being on top of the creature, it's about being next to the creature, right? Next to the horse. There's definitely something to that where they could sense that energy. And I love that explanation that you gave. Ted, since you've been working with the Ngala therapy model, can you tell us some unique aspects of that approach and why it's beneficial for our community, the veterans?
If you don't mind, well, what Sonia just described is basically the equine assisted model, okay, the EGALA model, okay.
Okay.
I don't think I could have described it any better. So,
Okay. So
but
that is the so what are so Egola is Sonia just described it. What are some other therapy models?
yes, so you have the equine assisted model, which is all groundwork, which Sonia was speaking about. And we practice EGALA at Veteran Strong USA. But we also do equine rider therapy. And so I'll just kind of walk through some things on how it starts. Okay. So equine rider therapy is always starting with safety. Okay. Knowing the animal, knowing how they can put you in an unsafe environment, you know, what to be aware of, the mouth, the front legs, the back legs, all that stuff. Okay. And really how to pick up on when they're showing anxiety to us, you know, when either when we're walking them or when they're between cross ties. Okay. And then we go into the grooming therapy because a lot of people don't even want to be in an arena with a horse. They don't want to be on top of a horse. Okay. So we'll just start slow and we'll just, you know, talk to them about grooming a horse and feeling the energy of the animal and what happens when you touch the horse here. Okay. What happens when you touch the horse there, you know? And then once we go over the safety and the grooming aspect, I take these men and women to a round pen, and this is where I teach them how to make a horse move. All right. Because really, it's the communication between you and the animal. All right. How are you communicating with that animal? Are you creating stress and anxiety for this animal? Are they picking up on that? Why aren't they doing what you asked them? Okay. Because number one, you're not communicating with them properly. So we talk about the communication aspects that really get the horse to do what you want the horse to do. Okay. And then we do the join up afterwards. Okay. After you put the horse in a stressful environment, okay, and you drop your, you know, your stick, your whip, your halters right there in front of you, and the stress levels drop. All right. They're going to come to you. They're going to join up with you. And as they're walking to you, you'll notice they'll be licking their lips. Okay. That is a sign. That is a good sign that they're content. They're comfortable with you. They're in a peaceful environment. So just explaining this stuff to them really puts the veteran's mind at ease. Okay. Because the veterans we get, they experience a lot of anxiety. You know, they're in a hyper alert state of mind. A lot of these guys are because they come from the combat zone. And so we'll do that a few times. We'll make sure that, you know, they're feeling comfortable. First, I'll be in the round pen with them. Okay. And maybe the second time, maybe I'll only be in the round pen with them half the time. Then the third time, I want them to have enough confidence in themselves to where they can make the horse move. They can lunge the horse. They can do the join up. So the stuff with the rider therapy is really more about the veteran gaining confidence in themselves, right? And when we have confidence in ourselves, we're different people. You know, we approach people differently. I used to do a lot of self-isolation, all right? And I think a lot of veterans are familiar with that, right? I mean,
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in our community. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to what you were saying. I can't remember if it was you or Sonia about unloading our trauma. You know, we don't want to unload our trauma on anyone. It's better for us. It's easier for us to keep that stuff inside of us. All right. Yes. And so, and honestly, I think a lot of humans are that way anyways, you know, but veterans are a little bit different. We're wired a little bit differently. We keep that trauma inside. We don't want to talk about it typically. We don't want to share it with too many people for fear of judgment. Okay. So once you get this veteran in the round pen and they're learning how to make this horse move, they're picking up on the signs that the horse is giving them. They're doing the join up. The horse is coming to them with, acceptance. All right. The horse is accepting the human. They're not fearful of the human anymore, because when you're in the round pen, again, it says fight or flight, right? So they're in flight mode. They see you holding a whip, and the whip is just a prop. It's not to whip the horse. It's just a prop. Okay. So when they see that you put that down, they see that you're a friend, and they approach you and they're licking their lips. Their head is down. They're walking towards you. That's a huge win for a veteran. Okay. It puts the veteran's mind at ease. They have a sense of accomplishment now. All right. I wonder what it would be like if I was able to communicate with my kids this way. If I was able to communicate with my wife this way, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my husband. Okay. So from there, once I have a comfort level with them, being able to work the horse in the round pen, then we go to tacking up. And tacking up, Chris, I'm sure you know this. I know Sonia knows it. And is that tacking up is not something you just learn in 1-2 times. Okay. It's like, this is something you learn over the course of, weeks, maybe months. All right. How to tack up a horse. And then once I feel comfortable with them tacking up the horse by themselves, then I turn them loose on tacking up the horse by themselves. That's a sense of accomplishment. Okay. And then from there, it's how do we mount the horse? All right. And once we get them to mount the horse, how do you sit in the saddle? All right. That's a big, big part of riding. How am I sitting in the saddle? All right. I'll just go over some basics. I'm sure you guys know this. Okay. Am I sitting on my pockets? Are my heels down? Are my hips relaxed? Are my elbows relaxed? Are my shoulders relaxed? Am I breathing properly? Because if you're in the saddle and you're like this, the horse is going to pick up on that energy. But if you're in the saddle and you're like this, they're going to know that you're relaxed. If you're relaxed, the animal's going to be relaxed. And then we go from there to just the basic cues. So again, we'll go back to the round pen and we'll just work on the walk. How do I make this horse turn? How do I make this horse move his body from left to right? All right. How do I make the horse back up? How do I make the horse stop? Am I communicating with the horse properly with my cues? If I'm giving the horse a combination of cues and the horse isn't responding correctly, well, it's because you're not giving him the right combination of cues. All right. So the focus aspect for a veteran, very much like when I was in and both of you were in, if we're not focused on our job, okay, bad things happen. All right. So again, this brings it back to the whole confidence piece. My goal with these men and women on the rider side is, I know, and I'm sure Sonia, you can appreciate this. Chris, I don't know what your riding experience is, but sounds like your wife may have a husband horse for you.
So we have not gotten that far, but I can go out there. I'll ride. I prefer bareback, honestly, because I don't have to tack up. And I'm just, this entire time you're talking about tacking up, I'm like, and remember, the horse always lies every time you tack it up by holding its breath.
Well, there is some truth to that, but the fix for that is, before you even get on the horse or cinch him up, okay, before you cinch him up, you got to walk him around, okay, so he can expand, or if he's got his lungs expanded, he has to deflate them to breathe while you're walking him, okay?
Yep.
So, but the main thing with the riding, making sure they're staying centered in the seat and all the cues and all that is, we graduate from the round pen. We got a 1/4 mile track at the ranch. And so then we'll move to the track where you can't really get into too much trouble on a, 5 yard wide, 8 yard wide track on a horse. Okay. So
That's the wrong thing to say with a horse and a veteran, and you're putting them on top of each other. Come on, man.
So, well, hopefully by that time, my comfort level with them and their comfort level with the horse has gotten a lot more confident. But nonetheless, we do some track work for several sessions, and we teach them how to move the body from left to right, and again, how to turn the horse by its nose, its mouth actually, with the reins, and how to keep the horse straight. Okay. How to keep the horse moving straight. And then the ultimate for me, okay, is teaching these men and women what to do when a horse spooks and you're on top of them. Okay. Don't freak out. Don't yank back on those reins. I see a lot of the beginner riders, they like to take those reins and they like to pull them straight up. Okay. That's the wrong thing to do. Okay. So what I teach them to is when they spook, you have to redirect that energy. Okay. You're operating the horse. Okay. Much in the way, whatever, if you were a machine gunner on a tank, okay, or tank driver, you're operating that equipment. You're operating this horse. So when that horse spooks, I want you to redirect that energy and I want you to kick them through it. Okay. And yes, I know this is a scary situation for you, but I'll bet you apples to oranges, you've been in scarier situations. Okay. So it's the whole confidence builder is really what it boils down to.
Yeah. And we could totally deep dive into this even more. And you guys have an invitation if you ever do want to do something like that, that we will love to have you guys share some more. I would actually like to shift it over for time's sake to answer some of the questions that some of our patrons have added to here. So let's get to the comments really quick. So we're going to start with Eric Miller. It's not really a question, but more of a statement. But I think it's something that needs to be addressed because you guys talked about this. He says he's unfortunately overweight to ride horses anymore. I think that you guys talked about that. The therapy that you guys do is not purely riding, right? How do you guys? How would you like to answer this, Sonia? Would you like to take a stab at it?
Sure. Our facility right now is set up so that we can accommodate those with any kind of mobility concern or those that are in wheelchairs or struggle to walk long distances. So we do, if anyone has mobility concerns, we like to know ahead of time so that we can set up the and structure the event to make sure that they're comfortable. Because we can, there's opportunities to walk out into the fields and go into the forests and areas and do all this stuff, but there's a lot of uneven ground and it can be a long distance. So we will structure the program around them. We have a mini horse so that those that are wheelchair bound or need to sit for the majority of the event can do that and still interact with a horse. So they can still do all of the things that everyone else is doing with a full-size horse with the mini because they're just the right height when you're seated. And we're going to train that mini to cart pull. So if they can transfer from a chair into a cart or step into a cart, they can still participate, as we move into more mounted activities. As Ted's been doing such a great job describing, we will be adding that to our program design as well. In the future, we can still have something for those that can't mount or don't or choose not to, do not wish to mount a horse. There will be cart driving as an option as well. But I understand the concern for sure. And, it's finding a facility that it looks like Ted's got a really nice setup. I was stalking his website while he was talking. So it looks like he's got a pretty nice setup there that if someone needs to do, stay on flat ground or pavement or, a nicely groomed gravel road or whatever, usually we can accommodate that and still have a full experience. It shouldn't limit the outcomes that they have at all.
So Eric also he asked another question. If anybody's heard of the new homeless, it says many people don't realize that pre-pandemic haven't heard newer numbers. The majority, over 50% of homeless, are veterans.
Wow.
That last number I heard were like over 90% males, over 70% females. I'm not 100% sure. Are you guys catching his question?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Eric.
I'm not quite sure that those numbers are correct. I'm not going to say that they aren't, but I would say that a vast majority of homeless veterans are ones that are other than honorable discharge because they don't qualify for a lot of the HUD bash, if that was something. And they could have a lot of mental health and also substance abuse problems, have those barriers. And also with that, even if they do qualify for HUD bash, maybe they don't want to seek help, right? They're perfectly fine being out in that environment, unfortunately, because they don't have to seek help. They're just comfortable being in this, unfortunately in that state. And then also just the qualifications to get help from HUD bash. You have to be homeless for over a year, chronically homeless. I mean, this is ridiculous. So at that point, you've experienced so much more additional trauma than what you've experienced within the military. And now, you've been said no, or you don't qualify, all these, you've been re-traumatized and felt less than, and you have served our country, whether it's honorably or dishonorably or other than honorably, you still deserve to have decency to live and have that. And so that is just something that is really unfortunate, and something that, with my work that I do with the Orange County Veterans and Military Families Collaborative, that's something that is very near and dear to my heart, that we here in Orange County and in California, we're really trying to do a better job with addressing the homeless, issue, and specifically with veterans, because it is, we have such a high number here, and they really aren't being served in the way that they should. And so, yeah, I'll get off my
No,
my soapbox, because
it's true. I think a lot of the homelessness, to your point too, is related to mental health. That there's just not a capacity for that individual to either hold down a job or find decent housing or navigate the system that could help them. But it's so difficult that it can be overwhelming and exhausting. I mean, to your point, if you have to wait a year, what else are they going through? And giving up, feeling defeated, it's very easy for that to occur for people who are really struggling and walking an uphill battle, such as those, veterans who are battling homelessness. I totally agree. It's either chronic, mental, physical, issues that they're battling, that just, it's impossible for them to hold down a job or pay a mortgage or a rent, that they run into these issues. So, my heart really goes out to them, for sure.
And there's also a new growing population within the homeless veteran community, and that's for older adult veterans, like specifically for the Vietnam era, because they are, maybe their caregiver passed away. And so they don't fit into that model of being homeless, because maybe they've been living with someone, right? And then now they may need assisted living. And so there's this, the VA is doing a pilot. There's only one facility in Orange County that's part of that pilot.
Wow.
Just so you guys know, if this describes somebody that you do know, just because they were dishonorably discharged, does not disqualify them from getting mental health from the VA. And also, if there's another program that if they were discharged because of mental health, they need to really talk to an advocate. I would like to move on just for time's sake, not because I that's not a very
Important
interesting
topic,
topic. I could talk about that all day long. Brian made a comment. He's always had a fear of riding horses after being a kid and riding a horse that ran off with him.
Oh,
This recently happened. I think the most important thing when that does happen to you, if you ever find yourself in a situation that you are on a horse that's, running away from you, I think the most important thing, Brian, and everybody else, is to get back on that horse. Um, Even if it's just to sit on it and then get back off, you need to get back on that horse because you need to end it on your own terms, not on the horse's terms. What do you guys have to say about that?
Well, I would definitely agree with you on that, Chris. And I think the hardest thing in life oftentimes is really overcoming our own fears and trauma. And so I would agree with that. I would say with Brian here, just start slow. Just start with visiting a horse and petting a horse and grooming a horse, and then try that a few times, and then maybe try getting on a horse, or depending on where you're at, try and find a location that offers equine assisted therapy where you're doing groundwork with the horse.
mhm.
That's what I recommend.
I agree.
So Brian Roop again, he asks, when you guys do therapy with horses, do you match the horse with the vet, or do you just match the vet up with the horse based on what they are working on?
You want to take that, Sonia?
Yeah, I probably do it a little different than you do, Ted, just because of my program design and size. I start them out with the whole herd. So the whole herd of humans and the whole herd of horses come together. And they may connect with a certain horse in that experience. And if possible, we'll partner them that way for one-on-one experiences. But I'm also looking at rider skill and horse skill when I get into some of the mounted work, which I've done a little bit of, but we're going to do more of next year. So I will partner based on skill set as well. But if we can partner them with a horse they've connected with, that's kind of our first goal. And then the one thing that I do is a little different is I ask the horse. I have had horses say no. And one of the things I teach, is that consent and partnership and respect are important. And if you show up, and you're like, I don't want to be here and screw this, and I don't want to have anything to do with it, I'm not going to force you. It's challenge by choice, right? And I give the horses that same respect, that if I go out in the field and I'm like, all right, buddy, let's go. It's time. We got to vet that, we got to mount up. And my horse is like, no, fuck this, and takes off, pardon my language, but it's like, absolutely not. I find a different one, right? I figure it's a military show. We're good, right? I was a sailor. This is my only excuse. But I will find a different one that is willing and does want to partner. I may go out in the field and be like, who wants to work today? And whoever approaches, that's who goes, if it's something that I can leave open to discussion. But there might be times when, my choices are limited because I don't have a herd of 50 horses to pick from. The overhead would be ridiculous. So I have to, I allow freedom where I can. Sometimes it's like, nope, sorry, the kid's got to get the shots. So sometimes we just got to go to the doctor, it's got to happen. So, but I allow choice as much as possible on the horse's side as well, which might be a little different than a lot of programs do.
What about you, Ted? How do you do it on your facility?
Well, I work with 4 different horses, so it just depends on what we're doing. If we're doing groundwork only, I'm not going to work with my horse Jackson. He can be a jerk, so he's not good for groundwork. But he's a great horse to ride, and he forces you to ride him. And so this is where like the training comes into play that I described earlier. But yeah, I have a couple different horses that have great attitudes. They're very people-oriented horses. My horse Jackson is more of a horse's horse, and he tolerates humans. But the other horses are great around humans and other horses. So I would definitely be mindful of, you know, what horse I'm working with, and when it comes to the humans and that.
Yeah, that's it. We have some people that came on here saying hi, and some supporters of Sonia as
Woohoo.
well.
Yeah, Jennifer, her and her husband are part of Mission 22. Her husband's a Marine.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's so many amazing things that are going on, and we took a little bit of time to really kind of deep dive or skim the surface of what you guys actually do. But one of the biggest things that I want to stress out to everybody, or stress out, one of the biggest things I want to stress to everybody is that these two veterans give their time to help our community. And if we didn't have people like Sonia and Ted out there, our community would not be as strong as it is. And looks like we have somebody else that says hi. So we wouldn't be where we're at today without Ted and Sonia. So I really am honored to be able to share the space with you guys and to kind of pick your brains a little bit. Is there any last things that you would like to talk about before we pop out of here? Anything that's weighing on your guys' heart?
Well, for me, I just want people to know. I know it's going to sound so cliche, but just to lead with love. Oh goodness gracious, sorry about that. Just to lead with love. Veterans have seen more and done more than majority of Americans will ever experience. And so, yeah, some days we may have a bad day. Okay. And some men and women live with severe trauma, and we don't know what's going on inside of them. And so I would just, um, ask these people to really just extend, a helping hand, extend some love. It's not always the, hey, thank you for your service, that really makes a difference. You know what makes a difference? Having a conversation with us. All right, that's what makes a difference. Okay, so that's all I'd like to say. And one other thing is, Veteran Strong USA. We operate out of San Juan Capistrano, Southern California. You can find my contact information on our website, veteranstrongusa.com. We are a 501c3. We rely on grants and donations. No veteran pays, okay? No veteran family member pays. No active duty or their family members pay. So there's no shame when you come down and you work with us, okay? We want to help you. We want to help you overcome your fears, work with you on your trauma. And we just want to make sure that you understand that you are important. Okay. You're important.
And that is veteranstrongusa.com. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we posted it to the comments, everybody. So here we go right here. veteranstrongusa.com. Go there and check it out.
Awesome. And I would just echo Ted's words. He said it beautifully. Just, have compassion for each other and understanding that you don't always know what someone else is going through. Take the time to extend a hand if you can. And for the veterans, their family members out there, take advantage of the resources that are out there for you. They're there. We're here to help. That is our entire mission. We also are 501c3. We do not charge a single member that comes onto our property and participates in these facility functions or events or sessions. So there's never going to be a fee for you to participate. There's no harm in it at all. If you're a little weary about it, check it out. If you never come back, that's okay. But we would love for you to. So we don't want you to feel like there's some big commitment that can't be overcome. So definitely come out, meet us, meet the herd, and then you can make a decision if you want to continue or not. But there's no fee. We just really want to be here to be help to you and to your family. And we are also all donation and grant funded. And most of our time is everything's done. I don't pull a paycheck. Hooves and Heroes doesn't always pay for their space, but we make it happen. So we will be here, and we will be continuing to take care of the veterans, because it's important. The mission is more important than the money right now. My treasurer will probably kill me for saying that, but the mission is more important than the money. So we will continue to do what we do and be here for you all. So please take advantage of what's available in your area.
Also, their website is hoovesandheroes.org. If you feel free to go there and check them out as well, and connect with Sonia and connect with Ted. I lastly don't want to let Megan off the hook until I embarrass her a little bit. Because Megan,
me how?
embarrass you how? So Megan also runs HumanWorks, and HumanWorks has been helping out Mil2Vet vastly. And if you are a nonprofit or a veteran or something like that, you should really check out HumanWorks. They are bringing veterans and the community together through everything they do, and we would not be where we're at if it wasn't for their crew.
Yes, with me and Carol. So I just want to thank, for Sonia and Ted for being here and sharing this space. And of course, Chris for creating this space, really. And just want to let everyone that's listening, whether it's live or afterwards, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. Seeking help is hard, right? Even just recognizing that you need help, whether it's small or big, right? We can't do anything alone, right? And so understanding that there is a community out there. Your community might look different depending on who you are and what your hobbies are, but figure out what are you passionate about, right? And just reaching out, listening to Ted, listening to Sonia, learning about Chris, all, with all the time that, I've spent with each of you in different time frames, right? They found their space that gives them joy and passion, and everyone can find that. And just to seek that, and that's okay to feel maybe not whole especially after transitioning out of the military. That I think that's a normal thing. So find what it is that could make you whole, and find that community for you. There are so many people out there to support you. You've got 2 great organizations here, and there's so many more out there. And just reach out, like, find a veteran organization, and sometimes it may not be a great fit, but be curious, continue. Look out for it on Facebook. They have so many different veteran groups in your area. Just kind of like go out to your local posts, your VFW, try, seek, finding relationships. Don't be isolated. That's really, what I hope. This is like Mil2Vet, this space and everything is really encouraging, those that have served our country. I can't express my gratitude, just enough. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody that's out there listening. We appreciate all your comments, all your shares, all the emojis I see on my screen from the hearts and the likes. That helps us reach more veterans, helps us reach more veteran advocates. And if you are not in Washington State or California, and you are looking for a question therapy, I'm pretty sure that you could reach out to Ted or Sonia, and they may be able to help you get in the right direction. I'm willing to bet that they're even willing to listen to you talk and point you into those directions that can be beneficial for you. And that's the thing that we talk about. Our slogan is "Build Your Tribe." our slogan's build your tribe, because without that fundamental group of people, veterans would just be alone. So veterans are a lot stronger together, as the great Caesar would say. All right. And I think that's it. I think we're done. And I appreciate everybody for being on here, and we'll see you guys around. Sonia and Ted, just hang out for a couple seconds while this plays out, and then we'll see everybody else later.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.